Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to take a look at JST HEAT, the new saturation and distortion plugin from Joey Sturgis Tones. This is advertised as an extremely versatile saturation plugin that can be used on guitar, bass, drums, synths, vocals, or the mix bus. I decided to download the trial and replace all the saturation and distortion plugins on a mix with JST HEAT and show the results. This is a Vision Swords track I'm working on that should be available in the near future. Before that, let's take a look at the controls on the plugin. This plugin has 18 different saturation modes that all have different parameters and saturation characteristics. You can scroll through them here, or bring them up in a list here. It should be obvious what the big knob in the middle is for. In the Analyzer section, you have the option to mute, solo, or turn off each band, as well as change the blend. The frequency crossover points are very adjustable. I can take this one and move it from 40 Hz to 5000 Hz. Every mode has 3 bands except the no-name mode, which has none. On the left, you have tone shaping options. Tone, high cut and low cut, and most importantly, a button to switch the EQ from pre-effect and post-effect. There's a steep switch to control the slope of the cuts and a thump switch for adding some bass. On the right side, we have a mix knob to do some parallel distortion. We have the input and output, which can be linked, and an auto gain feature, which is thankfully on by default because some of these modes would blow your head off. Up top on the right side, we have settings and GUI size. In the middle, we have the A/B feature, so you can go back and forth between settings. You can save or load your presets or load the factory ones. And on the top right, we have oversampling options. We can either have it off, ×2, or ×4. I think it's probably a good idea to have this on because some of these modes are applying a lot of processing and a lot of distortion. By default, it is on oversampling ×2. What makes this such a deep plugin is that each of the 18 modes have different types of saturation and distortion, and many of the modes have different parameters assigned to the bands. Some have compression, some have upward compression, some have saturation, some have distortion, and one mode has fold-back distortion. The little tabs down here are descriptions or ideas on how to use the plugin. I really like the way that this is set up since some of these would really need more than just a word or two to get an idea of what it's for. It's even more important for a plugin like this that is meant to be multifaceted and versatile. We're not going to get through all 18 modes today. I'm going to go through different uses I found when replacing the saturation and distortion plugins on this mix I'm working on. What I was most curious about was using this plugin on bass, since oftentimes I am finding interesting ways to use distortion and saturation on my bass tracks. This plugin has 3 different modes for bass: Black Glass, Hellraiser, and Zellerap. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's fine. Let's start with the Black Glass, which is obviously a reference to Dark Glass, which I used as a preamp or a boost to go into this TSE bod. If you haven't used this plugin before, it is a SansAmp emulation that gives you a classic gritty bass sound for rock and metal. I think this is a wonderfully snarly sound. The description down here says, a bass preamp for modern bass tones. Delivers a clean, defined low end suitable for modern metal genres. Try it on synthesized basses for added clarity and punch. Use pre-distortion tone control to set the amount of low frequency, treble content to saturate. Use the high cut control to simulate a basic bass cap. The bands here are compression in the lows and distortion in the mids and highs. Let's take a listen. Next, I used the Hellraiser, which is described as a brutal sounding bass amp. It continues, provides a fierce aggressive tone to rock and metal bass lines, set the crossovers at 350 and 3000, and adjust the mid-band's heat to achieve an aggressive bite. Use all bands level controls as a tone stack. Use the high cut control to simulate a basic bass cap. About that last part, I don't think you can really emulate a bass cap with this plugin without additional EQ or processing, so let's ignore that part and put some EQ on here. The bands on this one are compression in the low and distortion in the mids and highs. An interesting thing about this mode is that it's doing a lot even when you set the heat knob to 0. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. It'll really help the channel, and I will be forever grateful. Now let's get back to the video. For the guitar, I used the no-name mode as a distortion pedal or boost. This is going into the Bogren Digital MLC amp. It's worth noting that there isn't band tweakability on this one like there are the others. I feel like this one sounds a little bit fizzy, and once again, the tone controls aren't really enough to get it all the way there. Let's take a listen. On the drums, I didn't do the obvious thing and use the drum power mode. I went with the blowtorch mode. The description says, elevate your mix with Tube Magic using series and parallel circuits for a bigger, punchier sound. Ideal for drums and percussive elements, adding dynamic, energetic character. All 3 bands are simply labeled as Tube here. On the synth bus, I tried a few different things. Here, I used the Bloodthirsty preset, which is described as an aggressive distortion mode that adds even and odd harmonics, great for adding bite to synth leads or bass lines in electronic music. This mode seems pretty versatile and is good for subtle or crunchier sounds. All 3 bands are labeled distortion. Let's take a listen. I also tried the California Reaper, which is described as an aggressive multiband upward compression and distortion. Use each band's heat knob to blend the compressed signal in parallel, pushing a specific frequency range into distortion and chaos. Try it on full mixes as an effect to get a dense, impactful atmosphere. That sentence seems kind of insane to me. It's worth noting here that all 3 bands are labeled upward expansion and distortion, meaning that this mode is going to really crush the signal. This mode would be great for trying to get super cutting synth lead sounds or doing some sound destruction chaos for Argent metal. Here I only have it blended to 23% and it's still pretty nasty sounding. Let's take a listen. On the mix bus, I also used the blowtorch, but this time only at 24%. Let's listen to how it sounds. Since I was going for some subtlety there, let's try the Just a Touch mode at 16%. All bands on this one simply say transformer saturation. Let's take a listen. This one really delivers on what the description says. A subtle saturation based on a custom transformer circuit. Apply lightly to the master bus for a cohesive, polished feel. Enhances overall mix warmth without drastic changes to the sound character. I definitely see this mode as being very useful. Since this is an instrumental track, I can't really try any of the other modes for vocals, so let's switch tracks. Let's try out JST HEAT on some brutal death metal vocals. This is my session for the Venomous Beans track I Am the Hand, featuring Resington. This track, unlike our previous track, is already out and you can listen to it anywhere, including this channel. Let's put JST HEAT on the vocal bus on the pain mode. This is described as a fusion of aggressive saturation and hard compression, used on dynamic sources like vocals for a pronounced upfront sound. All three bands are labeled as distortion and compression. Let's take a listen.
From my throat I witness their dismay. Mortals tremble in fear, so foolishly begin to pray. In shadows they cower, seeking shelter in vain. I am the head over retribution, the destiny remains unchanged. From my throat I witness their dismay. Mortals tremble in fear, so foolishly begin to pray. In shadows they cower, seeking shelter in vain. I am the head over retribution, the destiny remains unchanged.
It does indeed make the vocals sound slightly more upfront, even though they've already been compressed a fair amount. I had a section on clean vocals, but for various reasons, could not publish it. Sorry for the inconvenience. That's it for today. There are other modes that I did not get to, but you can mess around with that on your own since there's a 14-day trial available on the JST website. I am pretty impressed with this plugin because there isn't anything that sprang to my mind and made me say, oh, I wish they would have added this feature, or why didn't they put this here? The only thing that would have maybe made it easier to get started was if they had the modes grouped by uses like they do on the website. But then again, some of these modes have multiple uses, so maybe it doesn't matter. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Until next time. And if you made it this far, I've recently released singles with Vision Swords and Venomous Beans, available on all platforms. Once again, the links will be in the description below.